In November of 2020, I went in for my well woman visit. They happened to find a mass on my ovaries. We proceeded scheduling a surgery to remove what we thought was a benign tumor. And I woke up to the news that I had cancer. Because of COVID-19, my first oncology appointment was a telehealth appointment. That's when I was first told that I was a stage 4 gastric patient. My first thought was, oh no, what's going to happen to my family? I was told very early on that my best option was to pursue clinical trials. But before I could qualify for that, I needed to have some procedures done. And a few days before they were scheduled, my husband came down with COVID-19 symptoms. And then I became symptomatic. All told, it was about a month, which feels like a really long time when you've been given a really poor prognosis of months to a year to live.
At the beginning of the COVID-19 lockdown, we realized that we needed to bring together as much expertise as possible to understand what was happening and to help provide leadership to the cancer community. That's why we created the AACR COVID-19 and Cancer Task Force. And we knew that overall, a diagnosis of cancer doubled the risk of complications from COVID-19 or death. That was very important to provide information to the community at large and to the healthcare officials that were deciding on the priorities for vaccination.
Imagine back, although it seems like a century, a lifetime ago, but at the beginning, there was so much we didn't know, and we shut down in many areas. Now, one of the areas that we tried to keep open was clinical trials, and especially therapeutic trials, so patients could still have access to the latest innovations, but how to do that within safety perspectives. So again, whether it's the integration of telemedicine, of electronic consent, having digital tools, bringing all of that and then rapidly trying to make progress in those areas.
I started at stage 3. After the surgery, they had found that it had traveled inside both lungs and then basically reclassified me to stage 4. As far as the pandemic, I am an extrovert, so I was already going through something so difficult, but then to have everything I need and love that makes me happy torn away from me, because I was also immune compromised, I needed to stay away from people. It was excruciating.
My name is Winora Johnson, and I'm a 3-time cancer survivor. Now, because of genetic testing, it was found that I was Lynch syndrome positive. When it comes to a colonoscopy, it's a yearly thing for me. In March 2020, I was due for my regular scheduled colonoscopy, except one thing that was different was COVID. And I've got a notification that my procedure was canceled. So it was scheduled out about 4 months later. It came back with 3 precancerous polyps, and they were removed. It really brought home to me the effects of what COVID has done.
I've been actually through 3 clinical trials, and I was good for 3 years until it broke through again. It was a question of what to do, and it was recommended at the time that I follow through on a clinical trial of a treatment called CAR T therapy. These CAR T cells are eating my white blood cells. In the age of COVID, it means that even though I've been vaccinated, I know through some blood testing that the vaccines have not produced an antibody response in my system to COVID. I rely on people around me to get with it and protect themselves, and ultimately that protects me from this infection.
Back in 2005, I had this mole taken from my back, and it ended up in melanoma. Then I had this lymph node on my right side. It was a clinical trial open. We started the treatment like in January 2016. During the lockdown, at the beginning there were no flights at all. I had this metastasis in my brain. So yeah, medically it really affected me.
During COVID, My leukemia was in such a deep remission that I was removed from treatment on October 30th of 2020. So exactly 1 month to the day that they took me off my chemo for the leukemia, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I'd had IV chemo initially, and then I went to radiation. It was during the radiation treatment that I actually contracted COVID.
Unfortunately, she did not have a mild case of COVID, and she actually required hospitalization. That resulted in a delay in her radiation therapy.
I hope Congress continues to realize that they've done a very good job at putting money out to be able to fund science and develop better treatments for patients. It all requires a commitment by the American government and governments all over the world to be able to provide the funds that are needed.
Because of the research that's been done, I get to live. You know, it's allowed my family and I to still have trips that we can go on, or things that we experience together, or time at home. To say thank you is such a wild understatement. I am remarkably fortunate.